Guys, welcome to your 10th HTML and CSS crash course. Now in this tutorial, we're going to be talking about CSS Transition Property. So we're going to be learning how to make transition effects using CSS. So what I did right here, I just created a div and I assigned a class of div1 to this div. Okay, so go to your CSS also, and I gave this a style. I gave this background color, added border to the div1, added width and height, and also margin. So go back to your HTML and open this with live server. Okay, so you can see the div1 over here. So now we're going to try to add style transition to this. Okay, so let's say we want the width to increase. So let's say go over here and say div1, and this effect is going to happen when we hover on the div1 element. Okay, so we want to say width should increase to, let's say, 400 pixels when we hover on this div1 element. So go back to your browser. So when we hover on this, you can see the width increases, but this is not looking nice at all. It's just increasing kind of weirdly. It's not making it look nice at all. So let's go back to the CSS, and with the transition property, we can make this effect look very smooth. So we want the transition to occur for 2 seconds. Okay, 2 seconds. So go back to your HTML, your browser rather, and when you hover on this, you can see the width increases nicely. Okay, it increases nicely. Okay, so you can see when we hover on this, the effect moves fast, like it moves fast at the beginning, then towards the end it moves slowly. Okay, so let's say we want to make it look nicer, so let's add the linear effect. So it's going to move at the same rate. You see, it's moving at the same rate. Okay, moving at the same rate. So there's another property called ease in, ease out. Okay, so let's try the ease in. Save and go back to your browser. So you can see it moves slowly at the beginning, then towards the end moves very fast. Okay, moves slowly at the beginning, then towards the end moves fast. Let's try the ease out. Okay, so you can see this moves fast at the beginning, then towards the end moves slow. So this is the default transition effect. Okay, the ease out is the default transition effect. So we want to leave it at linear. Okay, so let's create a new div. Go over here and create a new div and assign a class of div2 to this. Now go back to your CSS. Let's just copy this style, and we want to change this to div2 and also change the color. I think we should use yellow. Okay, so now the next thing we're going to talk about is we're going to try to use what we've learned in the past. Okay, so get rid of this transition property for now, and let's go over here, say div2. So when we hover on this, we want something to happen. Okay, we want something to happen. So let's say transform, scale, I want this to be twice the size. Okay, twice the size. So let's go back here and say transition should be 2 seconds, but we want to say the transition for this transform element. So we want this to happen on the transform property only. Okay, so go over here and you say transform. So you're saying this transition should occur for the transform Wait, let me copy this. For the transform property, and the duration should be for 2 seconds. Okay, 2 seconds. So go back here to your browser. When you hover on this, you can see it increases nicely. Okay, it increases nicely. So we want to move this to the left. Let's say margin left, and we're going to give this 40 pixels. Go back to your browser. Let's give it 100 pixels then. There's a new element called VH. So VH just stands for viewport height. So we're moving this div2 element to the left by 100 viewport height. Okay, so it's in the middle now, so you can see this effect properly. Also, let's add a text to this, so we should see how the increase in size would affect the text. So go back to your browser. When you hover on this, you can see as the div increases, there is a corresponding increase with the font size of the text. Okay, there's a corresponding increase with the font size of the text. So when we leave this element, you can see the font size also decreases nicely. But when we remove the transition property, so just comment this out by pressing Ctrl and backslash. So comment this out, and you can see when we hover on this, it's not looking nice. It's just looking ugly, kind of weird. And when we add the transition property back, you can see it's a really nice effect. So let's create a new div, and we're going to assign a class of div3 to this. Save and go back to your browser, go back to your CSS file rather, and copy this style, the div2 style, and paste it back here. And you want to change the name to div3 and also change the background color to, let's say, blue. So now the next effect we're going to try to make use of is the rotate. The rotate. So I taught you this in the last tutorial. The last tutorial, we talked about this in the last tutorial. So if you've been following this tutorial properly, you should know we talked about this. So we're just going to add the transform property, and we're going to make use of the rotate. I want this to rotate 360 degrees, and also we're going to add a transition property, and we're going to select the transform, and we're going to give this a duration of 1 second. Okay, so go over here. Let's remove the margin left. So go back to your browser. So why is this not happening? Why is the effect not occurring? So go back to your CSS and let's try to find the error. So the error is we didn't add the value of this 360. So it's 360 degrees. 360 degrees. So you can see when we hover on this, the div rotates 360 degrees in a duration of just 1 second. 1 second. So now I'm going to show you the interesting part. Let's move this div back here. So scroll up and comment this out. So comment that out and go back to your browser. So you should see the effects. Nice effect. Nice effect. So the next thing we're going to talk about is we're going to use the transform property, but we're going to use the scale. Okay, the scale. Now this scale is very useful. You can use it to make hovering effects on your card or on your site or something. So let's assign a class of div4 to this, say, and we're just going to copy this and paste it over here. Okay, now we're going to get rid of this, change the background color to green, and close this up. So div4, this effect should happen when we hover on it. So say transform scale x, let's say 180 degrees, and we're going to add a transition, and we're going to make this transform, and the duration should be 2 seconds. Okay, 2 seconds. So scroll down. Okay, there is an error over here, so let's fix this. So that's the interesting thing about coding. Okay, that's the interesting thing about programming. So the error was that, okay, first of all, this is going to be transform, and this is going to be rotate. Okay, so rotate. So when you hover on this, okay, there's still an error there. So this transition should go for 2 seconds. So go back to your browser. When you hover on it, you can see the way the card kind of flips. So if it were to be an image, that's how the image is going to flip also. Okay, so let's change this to rotate Y, and you should see that the same thing happens, but this transition is really smooth. Let me just move this to the middle. Let me just say margin left 50 viewport height. Okay, it's not moving. Let's just comment this out. Okay, comment it out, and you should see that this is a really nice hover effect which you can add to your browser. I'm just going to show you an example of how you can use this real quick. So this is a project I did some years back, and you can see when we hover on this, you can see the way the image flips. You see, so this was done using the transition effect, using the rotate X. Okay, rotate X. Now the next thing we're going to learn how to do is how to use how to move elements to the top using the scale Y. So it's kind of going to be like the element is moving up and moving down when you hover on it. So create a new div and assign a class of div5 to this, and we're just going to copy this style, paste it over here, get rid of this, and we're going to say div5 hover effect, should be on hover. Just change this to div5 also. So say transform scale Y. So I want to move this up to 10 pixels. Also go over here and say transform scale Y. So initially it's at 0 pixels, so that's the initial height. So when we hover on it, it's going to move up a bit. So go back to your, let's refresh this. Okay, so when we hover on this, it's not working. Go back and check for any error. Okay, check for any error. Okay, so the error is that this doesn't take px, doesn't take value of pixels. So let's just leave this at 1.3 and we're going to move this. So let's give this a margin left of 100 viewport height and also change the background color to purple. Save this and go back to your browser. Now when we hover on this, you can see it makes the div stretch out. Okay, makes the div stretch out. Okay, so you can apply all this effect to your to your satisfaction. You can do anything you want, anything you like with the transition effects. Okay, so you can even add border radius. Scroll up to this part and you can add the border radius as the width is increasing. Okay, so you can add border radius to this as it's increasing, and you can also make this 50% to form a perfect circle as it's increasing. So this would be done when the height is also at 400 pixels to get a perfect circle. Okay, so you can see how this square transforms to a circle. So that's all we'll be learning for this tutorial. If you did enjoy this tutorial, make sure you smash the like button, subscribe if you haven't subscribed, make sure you comment down 2% so I'll know you watched this video to the end. If you do watch my videos to the end, make sure you always comment 2%. And thank you for watching. Stay tuned for the next tutorial and I'll see you in the next video.